Good evening. I want to call the reorganization of the Sherborn School Committee to order. Do we have a motion for the chair?
I do. I nominate Ann Hovey.
And second.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Okay. We'll vote.
Sure. All those in favor?
All those in favor? Thank you.
Aye.
Oh, do I have to vote too? Yes.
So we welcome Ann Hovey as the chair.
Thank you. Thank you. So the next order of business then is to find a secretary. Do we have any nominations? Can I nominate? I'd like to nominate Greg Garland. Any seconds?
Second.
Any other nominations? All right, we'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Congratulations. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Do we do these now or do we do this later? These other committees?
I think I
I can later.
do them later.
Okay. So now we have community comments. Any community comments? No? Then I would like to officially welcome Scott Embry to our ranks.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Looking forward to it.
And I'd also like to acknowledge Frank Hess's work over the last 2 years as the chair of the Sherborn School Committee.
Yeah.
So you've been amazing. So just like to say that your knowledge of the public education system and your dedication to the district has been absolutely exceptional. And I've got big shoes to fill.
Thank you.
So thank you. All right, CSA?
Thank you. Good evening. Just a few updates to the CSA calendar for June. Tomorrow we'll be doing the Teacher Appreciation Luncheon at Pine Hill. After tomorrow's half day completes for the students. On June 17th, which is a Wednesday, CSA will be sponsoring an ice cream social. And we will be sending out details with respect to the precise timing of that, but it'll be late afternoon. And the wrinkle, this year, Positive Wrinkles will also have some live entertainment. We have a musical group lined up for that, which will be providing music during the event. Some official business for us, we'll be sending out a CSA ballot this week. And we have nominees for all the open positions except for one. We still have, we're still in search of a candidate for president. But those will be going out this week, and we'll be asking Pine Hill families and parents to return those early next week. But then finally, on behalf of the CSA board, we just wanted to thank the Sherborn School Committee, the Sherborn School District, Pine Hill administration, teachers and staff, and of course our Pine Hill families for their support this year. And especially to our parent volunteers. They're too numerous to name, but they are so very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for all of your time and dedication. It's been quite a year, but I appreciate it. And you as well.
Yeah, thanks. I wasn't sure if I was
straddling. Yeah, go sit over there for that. Yeah, so thank you and good luck with your continued search.
Yes, thank you.
All right, Dr. Brown.
Well, thank you. The Pine Hill faculty, many of the faculty members this evening, including Ms. Sidman and Mr. McGordy, who are usually here at school committee meetings, are at the Norfolk County Teacher of the Year banquet. And Pine Hill's Robin Mansfield, special education teacher and math curriculum leader, is being recognized tonight as Teacher of the Year. So congratulations to Miss Mansfield. She does us proud. Staying in line with recognition, our Destination Imagination teams Two of our teams went to globals, and they placed in impressive international competitions, the Supersonic 7 and the Wonderful Water Warriors, and I referenced them. They've already received letters of congratulations from our superintendent. We're down in Knoxville a week or so ago. I also wanted to recognize our Math Olympiad team, who most importantly enjoyed a year-long quest of deep mathematical thinking. They meet at 7:30 in the morning once a week, and they happen to have placed in the top 10 percentile nationally. So we'll be recognizing them with Math Olympiad Awards at Friday's all-school meeting. To keep the school committee updated, we're still in the process of 3 searches right now, classroom teacher, special education teacher, and FLES Spanish teacher. We will hope to be wrapping up those searches and sending candidates to meet with our superintendent soon.
Is the window for applications closed for all 3 of those?
The classroom teacher position, which I believe the superintendent's report will speak to in more detail, is currently open. That's relatively hot off the press.
Okay.
The other 2 are closed, and we're in the process of vetting finalists.
And you're happy with the pool candidates?
Yes, we had for a classroom teacher position, which has only been posted since last Thursday, we have 150 applicants.
Wow.
For our special education teacher position, we had about 50 applicants. We have it down to 3 finalists at this point.
That's
Yeah,
great.
Yeah. So, I mentioned in the report, it's that time of year where Mr. McGordy and I and our Malakala Russo, our special education administrator, are in the process of having either mid-year cycle or summative evaluation meetings with all of our faculty, and that process is well underway, and we've had very rich conversation and goals reflection, and faculty will be receiving their written ratings and evaluations over the next week.
Thank you. So I guess, Dr. Ledoux?
I'll actually speak a little bit to the superintendent's report. The fiscal year end scenario we'll discuss as later, as it is an action item. But to look at the park public forums that are coming up, as you are aware, the DESE will vote whether to go with park in the fall of 2015, and we'll see what that outcome is. So the governor has asked them to seek public input. So the DESE is traveling across the state, and you can see the dates that those are. And that we'll take next steps based on that vote in the fall. And from METCO, that it was level funded pre the 9C cuts, but that on the afternoon of April 29th, the House Ways and Means Committee adopted the METCO amendment filed by Representative Kaufman with a $1 million increase to the METCO program, which is phenomenal given the focus that the Dover and the Sherborn Public Schools have with that METCO program. It's an essential part of who we are as a school district.
Will that raise them to above the
Pre-9C cuts, yes. And then for me, for the assistant superintendent update, I actually did a brief year in review of some of the district goals. I know that at the beginning of the school year, we spent time on how we were meeting those school goals, but I wanted to just encapsulate how we were doing when it came to articulating the instructional approaches and opportunities to ensure curriculum success for all, the zones of regulation that was reinforced here at Pine Hill, and challenge success, where you'll see more about that in Dr. Brown's school improvement plan for Pine Hill for the upcoming school year. And the Wellness Committee has spent some time working together. A wellness implementation subgroup has met, and we're in the process of looking at some implementation guidelines for wellness that will be published to the website pending the approval of the school committee subcommittee for the wellness policy. We'll talk about that at our wellness committee meeting, which is June 8th, next Monday. For the educator evaluation, you've heard along the way all that we have done for setting SMART goals, for using district-determined measures. The state is now calling those common measures, but it's the same idea. It makes better sense and is more understandable to think about them as common measures. We completed the Qualified Peer Observer course, and those cadre of educators have met. I will debrief with the consultants on Thursday the next steps for that course, and for what the Qualified Peer Observers will work with our educators next year, paired to focus on whatever area the educator wishes to focus on. This is truly a very highly evolved model where an educator can conduct some action research and do some peer conversations, peer observations.
Karen, can I just
Sure.
ask, with regards to the training of the qualified peer observers, was that a special program that was worked out together with Dover, Sherborn, and the organization that did the training, or did they already have this program in place for educating QPOs?
It was something that was a partnership between Dover Sherborn and the Teachers 21 and the Boston Leadership Program. So the Boston Leadership Program is now being vetted through Teachers 21, where they train people to be peer observers using a highly evolved model that you've probably seen in place before, pre-conference observation, videotape, and post-conference, but it more so how to have those collaborative conversations, because the observations are not necessarily a part of the qualified peer observer. You could just have a conversation about how to analyze data, or looking at student work, or action research on putting inquiry into the science classroom. So it was developed in conjunction with Teachers 21. Our next steps will be to refine it to make sure it matches what we needed. We were developing the qualified peer observers as we went along. Nobody had looked at that model before or done that model before. So I think that we're in a great place to think about next steps with Teachers 21 for the upcoming year. We will also use the train the trainer model, so there'll be some of the currently trained QPOs who participate as facilitators in the spring. So it's a great next step, and then it's sustainable.
So can I sort of follow up on that? That was a good question. So if we're talking about the professional growth and evaluation system and what the things you've done this year, but that still remains a district goal for the future. So what are some of the things that are being leveraged from this year into next year to continue to develop that?
I met with each of the QPOs. They met as a group May 15th. To think about how do we communicate this to our peers, and developed a brochure. I also sought feedback from each of the trained qualified peer observers as to what was great about the course, what were some of the challenges, which I will share with Teachers 21 when we meet on Thursday. In addition, the qualified peer observers have asked for more professional development time next school year, which I will also work with Teachers 21 on. And one of the co-facilitators had suggested that too. She said, I'm hearing that people need more support next year, so what can we do for them? We will offer the course again in the spring, fed by the feedback from the QPOs. And then we will pair people in the fall, the QPO with the educator who comes forward to be part of the QPO program.
Thank you.
And then we piloted the 2 student surveys, the panorama and the tripod. We actually decided that we will administer the tripod survey, grades 6 through 12 for our educators. K-12 it will be the administrator survey with tripod. And that at the K-5 level, we really felt as though Pine Hill, Chickering version of it made more sense. We piloted 2 of the types of surveys that are available and realized that we could probably do a better job of crafting something that made more sense for our students. And then the curriculum revision, you can see that the Understanding by Design, we've almost completed all of the stage 1. And what will happen with those stage 1, which is the essential questions, the objectives, what students should know and be able to do, those will be copied and pasted as a PDF, just stage 1, to the newly revised DS website under curriculum. So eventually, within the next year, that's where families can look to see what is a typical 3rd grader know and able to do in the area of science, and we'll be working on that in the upcoming year. So it's a great way for us to publish that. A lot of places and a lot of educators have them posted to their websites or to their whatever site, their grade level site. I know at the middle school they use curriculum roadmaps, but we needed to have one repository, and so that's how we will go moving forward. And this is just a sampling of the work that's happened across the district. It was my stream of consciousness as I thought about all that's happened. And interestingly enough, we spent this morning as an administrative team thinking about the goals for the upcoming school year, which will be presented at the joint school committee meeting later this month.
Okay, sounds good, thank you. Nice to have you back, Christine.
It is.
It is. First of all, this is my last meeting, and I'd like to thank the Sherborn School Committee publicly for the support that you have all given me, both past and present members. Sorry. So thank you.
I'd like to thank you for keeping us on the straight and narrow, too.
Yes, thank you, and I apologize, I totally forgot. In my mind, you're going to be here forever.
Well, in spirit, I will. And on that note, I just want to inform the school committee, I contacted Hans, who's my replacement, and starting in July, we reviewed the candidates for the assistant business manager's position. Him and I agreed to 4 candidates. It's purely his decision. However, he's asked that I sit in on the interviews with him. We have the interview set up for June 9th. So, concerning the end of the year, as best we can, we try to do a projection for school committee. It remains relatively unchanged from what I reported in April, and we project out for the rest of the school year. It's about $190,000, and most of that's coming from the legal settlements account and utilities account. That's for the regular ed in-district budget. I guess there was some discussion last month concerning some needs that may have come about throughout the course of the year. Unfortunately, maybe after the budget was approved. And I followed up with the discussion concerning the projectors because I was a little bit concerned because it hadn't been presented in the technology plan, and I wanted to probe a little more, and once I did with Anthony Ritacco, I now understand and would highly recommend the replacement of the projectors at a cost of $22,000.
Okay.
All right, so we'll talk about that more later?
Yep.
All right, so when we talk about that more later, please speak up.
That's okay. That's
Yeah.
better than mine. The out-of-district, basically, there's a slight change from previously reported of about $50,000, and that's just due to evolving circumstances concerning changes in IEPs and placements.
Which way did that go?
Up.
Up.
Yeah,
Okay.
they're always up. And then facilities,
So
as far...
that happened like in the last 2 months, I guess, since the last time you reported?
Yes.
So 50
There were some transportation changes as well.
is a lot. I mean, I understand how it changes quickly, but 50 seems
The
like...
problem may have been, I anticipated this question because I said something similar. A lot of times these changes will occur, but the POs aren't amended right away. So these may have happened in February or January, but the actual purchase order hadn't been amended.
Okay.
So it's not all expense in effect through...
Right, so we may have been signing these bills,
Right.
but they weren't reflected here yet.
Right.
Okay.
I met with Mr. Kelly and Peter concerning the FY16 capital budget that was approved, and we have established a game plan as far as prioritization of the projects. what needs to go out to bid, what needs, what we need 3 quotes on from a procurement perspective. The drainage project is obviously I think the most important priority. And as a result, he is meeting with one of the members of the Capital Committee, Sean, and the engineer that has been working with Sean, and I believe they've scheduled that for next week. The only project I see is not probably getting done within the summer months, and waiting till next close of next school year is the sidewalk and paving.
Because it might be impacted by the drainage?
Yes,
Okay.
correct. And the window project, because we have all this transitioning happening, I would suggest we hold off on putting that out for an RFP until September, when the other projects have already been underway and completed. And my replacement will have time, to put that together.
Right, because this is just the bid ends, and the actual work would be the following, the request for the funds to the work would be the following year anyway.
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
So I'm curious, what's the water been like the last 2 days there? Is the playground underwater?
It's not, no. There's big puddles that are accumulating, but there's not,
It's just some of the downspouts have been reconnected. Is that right, Frank?
I'm not sure,
Okay.
I'll tell you.
Right, so it hasn't been,
it's not the lake that we sometimes accumulate.
okay.
So that's it. If anyone has any questions.
Everybody good? All right, Terry, please.
I wanted to mention a couple of things. One is in the superintendent's report, there is mention there that the DESE has sent out a parent survey, parent involvement survey. It's part of the DESE's process for keeping track of all the special education regulations and how well we're meeting them. So we have sent that notice to all of our special education parents by email, but we encourage any of the parents out there, the link is here if they want to access that through the documents that are on the website, to please go and complete the survey. They do continually update us on the percentage of parents who have responded to the survey. So we're encouraging all parents to go in and do that. It is still currently open, so they can access that.
Is that new, or is that they've done that every year?
They do that. It's on like a 2-year cycle that they do the.
And the results of that are on the website, DESE, like the results from 2 years ago, or?
They should be available
On
on
the
the
website?
DESE website, yes. So I encourage all the parents to do that. And just wanted to also say to the school committee, as we're wrapping up the year, I'm spending a lot of time with Marla Colarusso, the elementary special ed administrator, and the team chairs, just sort of debriefing the year with them as we've gone through this reorganization, and making plans for next year as we move forward as well. So,
Do they feel like it's gone as planned?
I think that in both cases, with team chairs and with Mrs. Colarusso, I think that they are expressing that they think that it went as smoothly as it can, and we're talking about some of the challenges that they faced in each of their cases during the year this year. So it's helping us to plan moving forward for next year to try to be more efficient and to bring the process along for everyone.
Do you anticipate a need for staff changes or anything like that, based on the feedback from this year?
Staff changes?
Meaning like increase, like there's not enough time, like Marla's split between 2 buildings, that didn't work out quite right.
So
or-
I think that in all the cases, they're expressing that everyone is stretched for time. Our team chairs are 0.6. We are looking to try to identify some grant money or something, so on an as-needed basis, when they may need to do additional days to keep up with the workload, that we'll be able to do that for them. But I think in all cases, that's the biggest concern, is everybody trying to find enough time in their days to do everything that is involved in their jobs.
Anything else? Okay.
Through the chair, may I add a piece of information that I thought would be in the superintendent's report, and perhaps the superintendent thought it would be in the principal's report.
Sure.
And it's regarding the teacher vacancy that I referenced earlier. And I'm noticing it wasn't officially concretized. Ed McAdams, after 15 years of stellar influence with colleagues and parents, and most importantly, students at Pine Hill School, has tendered his resignation. He's retiring from teaching at the end of this year. So,
I thought notices had to be put in early.
only for a financial stipulation,
Oh.
not for a release of contract situation.
That's too bad.
Go play the bongos at the Beatnik Cafe.
Well, we have many volunteer
I'm sure.
opportunities for Mr. McAdams.
He will be missed, for sure. But thank you for clarifying.
We have very, very big shoes to fill. He brings a lot of levity and logic and decorum and calm to our predominantly female buildings, so.
That's funny. All right, thank you. Do we have any subcommittee updates?
No, so I guess we're back to the end of year.
Yeah, let's go to the end-of-year purchase requests. So we need to vote tonight on the end-of-year purchase requests that Ms. Tigg was sharing with us. So I guess we should start with, do people have questions or discussions, things they want to?
How is that formally moved? Or you move it from one line item to another, or what do you say that you do?
We'll actually overspend the technology budget.
I thought you don't vote to,
We transfer at the end of the year, but we don't literally make the, you will vote in September the transfers,
No, no.
but we don't actually make the
32,300.
physical transfers.
Okay.
Because we like to run the balance of budget actually,
so we vote
to expend 32,000.
for
32,300?
that now, but it's not, but in September, we'll vote to make the transfer retroactively?
Yeah, we adjust the budget.
I'm never going to understand.
Well, maybe Hans will be able to explain it with you.
Good luck.
So it's my understanding that we would like to vote on purchasing then the classroom projectors totaling $22,000, 3 area rugs for the upper floors of the library classrooms totaling $5,325, and the new sign for the main entrance at a cost of $4,950. Do we have any?
I think that number for the sign is not correct.
481,630.
I don't think it's that either, because I don't think we should be paying the sales tax either, should we?
The sales tax is not applicable. The lower bid is
So then it
$4,000
would be 4530
and
45.30.
88 cents.
and 88 cents.
Is that the company that was doing the signs, like for the rest of the town, that would match them?
That's correct. That was our original quote. The second quote came in a little bit higher. So Sunshine,
Kind of a lot higher with the extra, the removal charge for another $400. Make that price a lot higher, didn't it?
What was that?
Well, on the first page, they got the $45.50 for the price of the sign,
Yeah.
but if you look on page 2, there's a $400 removal and disposal of old sign charge, so they're actually,
I didn't even see that.
oh, there you go.
Well,
Good catch.
Well, that's the
assuming-
49.50.
Are we assuming then that the Sunshine bid includes, although not obviously specified, oh, it does?
It does
Yes,
specify,
specify.
yeah, right at the end there.
Remove and dispose of this.
So what do you see for the number then? Is the 4530?
yes, they added sales tax, and I clarified that we were tax exempt, and they understand that.
So we'll
See, I
just,
didn't have the second estimate when I put my business report together.
Okay, all right.
That's why.
so we'd still go for
Okay.
32, right, just not to exceed that.
Well, let me see.
Yeah, so 49.50 is the old.
Do we have So the new numbers then, of the classroom projectors for 22,000, the area rugs, 5,325, and the sign for the main entrance at $4,530.88. Do I have a motion? Can I get
So moved.
Wait a minute.
do I have a second? We can have discussion.
You waiting for a second?
I'm waiting for a second, yeah?
Second.
Oh,
All right, any discussion?
So what is the number we're talking about then?
31,875 in total.
Okay.
This probably was brought up last
Oh,
time. and I
I'm
think-
sorry. 31,855
88
and 88 cents.
Okay, sorry, Frank? Yeah?
Well, I was just saying that I believe Greg brought this up last time, that we should really be having the projectors in the technology budget, and that should be scheduled for that. So moving forward, even though if we take care of this situation moving forward, there won't be any extraneous technology items in the future. It'll all be handled either under a grant or through the technology replacement and technology budgets.
If you recall, though, I'd like to address that. 2 years ago, the technology budget was cut by almost $20,000 because of budgetary constraints. We just recently got that money back. So I think there's been some concern about increasing it even further because of what happened 2 years ago. So I agree with you, we should put everything in there, and then if we have the luxury of a year-end surplus, then it's identified up front.
Right.
And Mr., excuse me.
I was going to say, it would be helpful to be talking about these things all the time, so we know what's critical and what's not critical. So you don't get to the end of the year and say, oh, we've really got to have this stuff, and it's the first time that we've heard it. So we had that discussion last time of having your wish list. Well, this is not really a wish list, it's something that you need, but having that list as we move forward, and maybe this summer, I don't know if the capital budget committee is going to meet, we probably should, so we know what their needs are. And I don't know if this qualifies as it's going into the capital budget process, but so we know all these things.
And that Mr. Rattacco does have a clear outline of what the replacement cycle is and has costed it out, so that we can look proactively in the fall at that.
Well, then there's a technology subcommittee, which I would think that this would fall under, that maybe should be the first step, then to capital, then, or then
Well,
to
it's
Mr.
not really
Rattacco.
under the town department policy, it wouldn't fall under capital.
Okay, so
It really is part of
But-
the operating,
but-
but
operating budget.
Right,
we
but
should have a
long-term.
technology committee review.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely.
So that's something to think
And
about.
this is the first year that we've included projectors in a replacement cycle. Other equipment is well identified on a replacement cycle. The projectors coming in through grants, previously acquired grant monies, they would never factored in. And perhaps part of that was the budget reduction that we're now trying to make whole. So,
Well, I think also the fact
It's-
that we weren't anticipating needing to
Yep.
replace them quite this early, so,
and they've become a critical
Right.
part of our instruction. But for the record, the projectors we have outlived their shelf life, their anticipated shelf life. We just didn't provision for them under the former thinking.
So I'd like to make a motion then? Do we
we
already have
made-
one?
we already-
Right, so what is it, is 31,856 or?
85588.
Would we,
855.
would we do it by,
but not to exceed,
but it's,
Margie?
but the way you read it off, it was
Those specifics.
specific three items, dollars for the specific three items, right?
Yeah, we can vote for them,
Well, no.
Oh.
I'm just saying, in the motion, it was 22,000 for projectors.
yes.
But 5325 for area work, right? Okay, so that's,
With a, total, so you specified,
right.
the motion specified line by line.
On my line,
For
Okay.
each of the three items.
right.
I still have a question still regarding the projectors. So we have 32 in the school, so we're proposing replacement of 22?
10.
10, sorry.
5 were already in the budget for this fiscal year. So by allowing us to do the 10 with 15 money and do the 5 with 16 money, we're going to take care of 15 of the...
And they're going to use the ones that we're taking out of service for parts to keep the other ones going.
Cannibalize,
Yeah,
keep
okay.
the others
Yeah.
going.
Yeah.
Okay. And the further replacement then goes back on the replacement cycle that's been identified
Right.
moving forward.
That's correct.
Okay.
And just so the committee knows, this problem has also occurred at the Chickering and the region. This is because of this company going out of business.
Okay. Yes, Mary?
So this is just a clarification on what's being paid for with what funds. So because I'm hearing, I thought this was all coming out of FY15, but then I'm hearing something about September and FY16 funds, so.
When we close the
Okay.
books, okay, I mean, obviously, we don't close the books today.
Right.
Until June
Yeah, yeah.
June 5th, July 15th.
15th, right.
And then by the time it's actually done, school committee gets the 15 end of the year report,
Right.
which includes all the transfers amongst the different appropriations.
Right, right.
So it is 15
So
money.
it's 15.
Yeah, it's not.
So, but didn't Frank just say something about 16, 5 of them coming out of 16?
No, it's projected that in addition to this 10, we will buy 5 next year out of
Okay,
16.
and they're already.
That's already in the
That's in the
budget.
budget.
Yeah, right, yeah.
So this is just speeding up the replacement cycle, so instead of 4.5 years, we can do it in 2
Or 3.
or 3?
Yeah.
Okay. So, do you have a vote?
Seconded.
It has been seconded.
So now we need to vote it.
Yeah,
All
we're
in
just in
fa-
discussion, so whenever we're ready, yeah.
Yep, so all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, the school, Oh, yes.
Sorry, Frank, were you moving on what we just, you had a motion?
No, that motion covered it. I wasn't sure when it was on the floor.
Okay.
it's a school improvement plan. I believe that's you, Barbara?
I apologize in that the school improvement plan is in very rough draft format right now. Originally, our school committee meeting was intended for next week, and there's a few moving parts. For example, our district collaboration meeting was today, and some of the folks at Pine Hill that are contributing to some of the thinking behind the goal structures. So I will have a polished version for you soon. In line with our big bucket areas, as we refer to them, students, faculty, and achievement, or academics, or I call it curriculum instruction and assessment because it's a big bucket. We have ambitious goals for next year. We will continue. First and foremost are the wellness initiative with Challenge Success. We are, the region had lots of things percolating this year, and the elementary levels had more of an exposure to Challenge Success and the kinds of initiatives and impact that could have at the elementary level. So next year, we plan to take a deeper dive. I included, it probably really should be more of an appendix, but the Challenge Success hasn't done a lot of work with elementary schools. We're part of their pioneer, and it's really, really exciting. But they have an acronym, SPACE, in terms of the components that they believe we should be looking at, developmentally appropriate and situation-specific to our elementary schools. So students' use of time, project problem-based learning, alternative and authentic assessments, climate of care. I'm sorry, I have a terrible tickle. Educate parents, students, and faculty, and the acronym for SPACE. is what those headings fall under. So our big goal for next year at Pine Hill, and we certainly will work and share resources across both of our elementary schools, to spend time at a faculty advisory committee level, faculty inquiry level, which is our faculty meeting structures, and certainly our school council level. This is a huge area of interest for our school council. Having inquiry into these broad areas that would have impact per challenge success on our overall wellness of students and social emotional health of students, and to concretize very clear recommendations for the following year. We certainly might exceed that and put some things into place next year, but the idea would be that we would have inquiry, for example, into our homework practices. That's a big area. Our lunch recess rhythms, ways that we perpetuate a positive climate for our students and how we celebrate learning, all of the things that come under that SPACE acronym. So next year will be a year of concerted focus and allocating professional time and time with our parent groups to come up with real clear action plan to be implemented the following year.
Oh, right. Quick question.
No,
Yes.
I don't want to cut you off, but so when you're done, I do have-
Related, and I haven't reflected because this is one of the meetings I had this afternoon with our school psychologist and our occupational therapist, related to climate of care and related actually to all of the components of the SPACE acronym. The social thinking curriculum and zones of regulation are programs and philosophies that we've been dabbling in that we plan to take further across all of our grade levels next year. DSEF has let us know that they funded a ambitious grant to help us with some training and materials around that. And you recall that we used the Open Circle curriculum for social competency. The social thinking and zones of regulation will dovetail nicely into our social competency curriculum, providing us common language to use with students from art class to second grade teachers to fourth grade teachers to phys ed class, et cetera. We don't currently all have the same base. And to promote and provide optimal social and emotional learning opportunities, strategies for teachers to use with students, strategies for students to use with themselves and with one another. So we will, as part of our work around wellness, we'll be embracing implementation of the social thinking curriculum. We've through some of our parent groups, we've done some training this year in the district for parents. It's something that there's an appetite for. It's something we've done a lot of professional reading on. Historically, we've used it more through a special education lens. It's applicable to all students and grown-ups.
So when I was looking at this, I read this and I thought each of these bullet items were just outstanding. It's just some really excellent ideas and ways to think about how to reduce stress, how to help the students' social wellness and so on, like a homework-free night or homework passes, so on. But the things that I think stood out to me the most were kind of under the project and problem-based learning, as well as the alternative and authentic assessments sections, because what's coming down the pike, as we all know, is the Common Core, the PART, the Next Generation Science Standards, which is all much more focused on the inquiry base, with students taking on the initiative, giving them the essential questions, them starting to try to figure out the answers to those questions on their own with the help of the teacher as opposed to the teacher teaching it to them. And so I think that this not only is going to help them in their wellness ability, but also will help the academic aspect of the student as well as a positive byproduct of this work. And will also start to shape the way that teaching should be happening. So we should be seeing, over the course of this, a change in how teachers start to teach their classrooms, which is one of the things that you had been talking about. I think 2 meetings ago that you've been wanting to kind of see some of that change happen, and I think, this implemented properly can be that impetus for change and, the PD behind that and all of that, so.
It all dovetails together, it does. In hindsight, I should reference challenge success, which I will do on the final draft, because all of the bullet points were lifted from challenge success, so, I didn't reference that there, but I will in the final copy.
Oh, go ahead, Greg. And then Scott.
So I'm not comfortable voting on something that's sort of a work in progress. So I'm curious, this is something that we have to have, right? I mean, this is one thing the school committee is responsible for, is having a school improvement plan, right?
Yeah.
So kind of a second point in my mind, at least, is if we went back to this meeting last year and we had the school improvement plan for 14-15, do we see an assessment of how we did? I don't think we do we?
Mm-mm.
So I'm wondering.
Last meeting? I thought we had a small wrap-up of that, and we had that.
Yeah.
Well, but in terms of looking at detail and something that might be several pages long, would it be possible to have that, maybe if we had, I don't know when legally we have to have this, but if we waited till September, this could be, you'd have more time, obviously, to have it, for it to be finished, and we could have some assessment of the previous years, and that could also inform this. Does that make sense?
It does make sense, and I could be mistaken, but I believe we voted on the current school improvement plan at the beginning of the school year. My understanding was that it was important to give you a purview this evening.
So I see.
I noticed.
So we don't have to vote on it.
And I do recall, Greg, you asking for us to add a column, and we could do periodic updates throughout the year. I think the intent of the way the superintendent and the chair structured are reporting out on initiatives at every meeting, every school committee meeting
Right.
this year, but I appreciate that it's not concretized in this
It's nice to see
document
it all in one
or
piece
specific
as-
to these
as
benchmarks.
opposed to bits and pieces.
And when I was looking at our middle school format for their school improvement plan, it contains all of the actions and the benchmarks, but they actually had a column for sort of mid-year progress.
Right, and we
So
know
I'll
you're not
format
gonna-
it that way.
You're not going to hit them all, and those that you don't fall into the next year, or maybe some things aren't important anymore. So
But it would be very easy to present that periodically per the agenda.
Well, it doesn't even necessarily need to be presented if it's just included
Right.
in the packet, or then we.
yeah, it's like
Free
If we have
reference.
questions, right, if we have questions.
it's like a
then we-
budget.
Super.
I think of it as like a budget update. You know, it's something we can read. We don't even have to talk about it.
Who,
Right, yeah.
who steers the content? Is it generated at so the Pine Hill Improvement Plan is generated by Pine Hill and we approve it or not? So in that case, we don't need to know how we did 14-15 to understand whether or not 15-16 is relevant or accurate. If we need to have reflection based on what happened the previous year, if it's happened at the same meeting, it seems like it's a difficult situation for the school committee to be in if we have to approve a future document when we haven't seen the result of the past year.
Well, we've really never seen the results at all, so at least we would have the results, which would be different than sort of the past. So this would be a one-time thing, I think, in terms of not having here at the end of school, having you go through the previous one and spend some time on it just to have it. I mean,
Yes.
normally I don't know when we vote on it, but at least we would have it to look at, and then we set up the expectation of, once we get to the end of next year, it'll all be there because it's been done sort of periodically.
Right, okay. So this is a kind of a work in progress as far as our procedure now, our process to formalize. And
Well, a little bit of history, too, is that the reality is that we didn't really have a very clearly defined school improvement plan before your tenure. So it's been a work in progress. I mean, it existed, but it didn't have benchmarks, it didn't.
And
So-
if I may add, the school improvement plan, there's a little preamble at the beginning, but the school improvement plan, or school improvement in general, by, in accordance with ed reform law, the school advisory council, our school council reviews school improvement progress throughout the year. So we meet approximately once a month, a minimum of 8 times per year. And as I have those meetings, I can, that would be a very logical place for me to take time to reflect and update, and then include at least every other school committee meeting a progress update.
And the reason that's done is because that advisory council was made up of parents, students, community at large, teacher, administrator.
Mm-hmm. But even though somebody else does it, it's ultimately our responsibility to have it, right, or to vote it. Okay.
Yeah, we have to vote on it. But it would be great if that could be something that's sort of added to the website so that it can be included in the packet every few months as necessary, but that if we had questions or wanted to look, if it was accessible all the time. So a living document in some ways, like on the website somewhere. And I think then that would be great then, because parents then over time may learn that it exists there, and if they have questions, they can see what the progress is and what the goals are.
Super.
Thank you.
Want to go through the other 2 or 3?
Yes, in following Frank's, the conversation we've sort of started here, may I jump to the last page to goal, what essentially is the third goal? I'll get back to the second goal. But the bucket of, as our district, we call it academics. I have it listed here, curriculum, instruction, and assessment. We, very specific action items and benchmarks, continuing our literacy work with reading, writing, and word study, spelling, handwriting, phonics, etc. But what is new, and I don't have it concretized yet because we're doing this in receipt of a DSEF grant and in coordination with the Chickering School under the tutelage of our assistant superintendent, but you see at the bottom there, develop K through 5 understanding. It's actually going to be K8. We established today, but certainly from a Pine Hill perspective, K5 is our purview. Understanding the next generation science standards and an inquiry-based approach to teaching science. I don't have any actions or benchmarks. That's the part that is still murky. We're vetting consultants right now. We're vetting 3 consultants. The intent is that through the DSEF grant, those which has been awarded, the Chickering and Pine Hill educators will spend a fair amount of professional development time next year working with consultants specifically to understand an inquiry-based approach to teaching science. We then will determine what are we teaching, what's going to be the content for life science, physical science, earth science, and engineering. Technology standards is being worked on in a more concerted way at this time. We see that as a 2-year process, but we want to start with the pedagogy, then we will determine the content. And I think that is a much bigger picture approach to bringing science, 21st century science education to our students. So it piggybacks on what you were speaking to, Frank. So I will, in the next week or so, I will be able to concretize this. I'll present you with an updated draft, perhaps, before the joint meeting. So you have it before the end of the school year, but it would be important for us to vote on that in the fall. And then going back to the teacher, the educator goals, Karen alluded to this in her assistant superintendent's report. As a district, we are making sure that we are keeping on the front burner our efforts and intentions and resources in supporting teachers around the educator professional growth and evaluation system. And specific to next year, again, these goals reflect what Karen has spoken to. The QPO, the Qualified Peer Observer rollout, if you will. I believe it's been mentioned of the 23 QPOs in our school systems for excellent teacher leaders came forward. They and will be QPOs at Pine Hill. Can I reference that, or is that a little detail not public?
That's fine.
Well, kudos to Lori Ryan, our librarian, Jen Ryan, 4th grade teacher, Heather McKay, 3rd grade teacher, and Rachel Correa, 5th grade teacher. They serve as teacher leaders in many, many ways in our school, and this is an excellent opportunity for our teachers to have these colleagues available to them as coaches and cheerleaders and reflectors.
Can I just ask a question on the QPO model? Is it the idea that the QPOs would be building-based, or?
Not necessarily. It's efficient if they're building-based, but we certainly have opportunity for cross-district or cross-building QPO assignment.
More depending on the need than it is depending on the age level and...
Absolutely. For example, a fellow librarian across town is a QPO. That might make sense for our librarian to work with that person. It would depend on what an individual's pursuits are. There are many things around data analysis, around technology integration, around strategies to manage and motivate students, around differentiating instruction that certainly need not come from a job-alike educator, just a solid, grounded, exemplar educator. But there is that opportunity. I mentioned, and again, these goals are specific to what Karen's already touched upon. We need to develop and implement a student survey tool at the elementary level. We wanted something that was a little more. We thought, as Karen said, we could do a better job if we developed our own tool that was perhaps more developmentally appropriate and clearer in language. Many of our teachers stepped up to pilot the tools that our district piloted this year, and it was interesting. Some of the teachers that had comfortable levels with their students, maybe an area that the teacher was surprised that the results weren't as resounding or as affirming as the teacher's self-perception, and in very appropriate ways queried children in some examples of, can you help me? I think I do this, and perhaps I don't, and can you help me understand? Well, you're the teacher. You shouldn't be asking for our... It was the interpretation of 11, 10, 9, 8-year-olds was, or a question. I remember one teacher's feelings were very hurt. Something about my teacher supports me when I feel mad or sad, or recognizes.
Sad or angry.
Sad or angry, and got low results, and the teacher thought, it's not my self-perception, but, and the students were like, but we never feel sad or angry. We don't feel that way at school, so you don't support us when we feel that way, because we don't feel that way. So there were some, with any test items, there were some misnomers, so we have a plan where a couple Pine Hill teachers and a couple Chickering teachers will work together the last week in June to develop the survey, and we'll certainly use the state model as an example, or the other model as an example. I'm looking at Frank because you're on the MOU committee with us, but some nuances will change in terms of teachers across our districts with regard to writing professional practice and student learning goals next year, because of some of the language that's changing in the state model, and because we chose to go with Pathway 2, which is an option under our Department of Ed's professional growth and evaluation system. We think it's more authentic. We think it's more matched with teachers having more higher level opportunities and more flexible opportunities to work on professional growth goals. So our committee has opted to go with what's called Pathway 2 as one of the options, and we've been approved by the Department of Education, so we need to train our teachers. Conceptually, that's not a shift, but pragmatically, the forms will look a little different. The number of goals, instead of having 2 SMART goals per growth cycle, teachers will now have 3 SMART goals per growth cycle. So there's some nuance changes. So that's what that language is reflecting in the educator growth and evaluation.
I think that Pathway 2 is called an adaptive as opposed to an adopted approach to the evaluation system.
I look to our assistant superintendent because there are so many adjectives and acronyms, and I've lost clarity.
I don't recall the adjective, to tell you the truth.
I don't know what's an adjective. It was
Description.
It was a description. It's just that you adapt the model, but make modifications.
That's correct,
And that's what we're doing.
That's
versus adopting the DESE's model,
which was pathway 1.
which is pathway 1.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So we chose, I think, a very high-level, flexible model that will be congruent with how we want to grow and support our teachers. So those are the big nutshells. There's many, many, many subsets of this work.
But I just wanted to say that Dr. Brown was ready to be able to give you the sort of skeletal outline, even though the district hadn't had time to set some of our district goals that are aligned to the school council goals. And you have some benchmarks that you could have added if you had had time that were an outcome of our meeting this morning. So I thank you for you and your school advisory council looking over exactly where Pine Hill needs to go next, but also keeping in mind where the district is. So thank you to Pine Hill.
Yes, no, I appreciate that, and I appreciate knowing that it's a draft form that I think makes a whole lot more sense to me as I read through it. I have just a quick question about some of the benchmarks, and so like for the benchmarks for under academics, the curriculum and assessment, so Teachers for Teachers comes in to do 8 days throughout the school year to provide workshops and coaching. Is the benchmark just having gone through that, or is the benchmark something that the teachers feel that they need to have taken something away from it? And I'm just asking because I don't necessarily know quite how it works.
Well, the tricky thing with benchmarks is writing measurable benchmarks. So our going through the coaching at the lowest level, developing common and agreed upon assessments and curriculum, published curriculum, and then, of course, implementing with fidelity and deep thinking. So, perhaps some of those could be broken out.
Well, that's hard. There's so much to cover that you can't cover everything. I totally understand that.
And the overlap, like many of our conversations today, the overlap with what's part of the educator evaluation tool, when we're in providing constructive feedback around many observations, et cetera. Obviously, the plan needs to be specific enough to drive our use of resources and our efforts and hold us accountable, but not so detailed that it bogs us down. So,
right, that makes sense. I think talking amongst people and hearing things, I think that one of the things people would like to sort of know more about those. So for instance, they've done now this literacy program, and it sounds like it's been fabulous, but how has that actually impacted student learning, or even how the teachers feel about how the student teaching is going? That would be, I think that'd be useful information, but not necessarily to be included in here, but maybe somehow in the breakout, if once in a while that can be alluded to at least. I'm not looking for like charts and graphs and just.
But to a degree, there should be some of that because we have MCAS, we have the DIBELS, and some of the other testing that is done to look at our literacy and so on.
Well, I think it's narrowing just to leave it to testing, though, too, to some degree. I think that's so much more than that. I think, isn't that part of what we're really moving towards? In some ways, it's beyond just what.
Lots of qualitative. We certainly hope quantitative, but lots of qualitative. But yes, I certainly can figure out a way to capture or dipstick because there's such richness.
Yeah.
And I always struggle with, not wanting to, spend our time here in too much detail, which I have the tendency to, get lost whenever you want to talk about great things in Pine Hill School. But I could give, certainly the level of detail that would be helpful. From very concrete things such as the reading assessment that we use, we weren't using fully. We were using the reading component, but not the writing component. And the coaches have helped us understand that children's expression of what they read, their ability to think in writing, is part of high-level reading. So we're being retrained in using our Fountas and Pinnell benchmarking system in the robust way it's intended to be administered. So, there's many concrete examples of shifts in our practice, as well as qualitative nuances in how teachers are using their instructional time, or what decisions they're making, or what their responsibilities they're releasing to students, as opposed to guiding with more structure, and they're able to get that richness. So I'm happy to bring snippets of that in any way that would inform our work, or help inform you about our work.
I think that would be great. Maybe that's something that we can work on, figuring out what to do that over the summer. Maybe. Not now. Is there anything else that you want to add?
Just, again, this is a, sort of the big blush kinds of things. Perhaps I should concretize, because it's not on here, but we're revising our report card. And I've mentioned that in conversation, but I see that as a big tangible, because it will reflect the contemporary practices that and how we report out on student progress.
Will it be on Aspen then, or not?
Yes.
Okay. For the coming fall, what's the target for the report card revision?
We will have ELA and math revised for next year. We will maintain our current science and social studies, because it doesn't make sense until we engage in our
So you'll have a
our
dual
work around
report
that.
card to begin with, part on Aspen, part written then? Or?
I think we'll need to figure that out. But my plan is that we would make it available on Aspen, but we'll still send it home the good old-fashioned hard copy way, while we're
Working.
coaching parents to use the parent portal, because my understanding is Aspen is only open for a set window.
That's correct.
And that
Which makes no
you
sense.
can't go in March to see your child's January report card, So we'll want to.
You got to
It's a
call the
district-wide
guidance counselor
issue.
and see what they
Yeah,
did, just to.
yeah. So we'll be growing into Aspen and using that,
Okay.
those efficiencies for parents, but next year we'll still send our report cards home the good old-fashioned way.
Okay, so to be clear, then the report card format is not changing. You're not changing to a standards-based report card. You're just changing the way that is being distributed to the parents.
Both. We're changing the content to reflect Common Core standards.
Right.
And we are shifting how and why we report on student progress to have more robust goal setting and progress review conferences. Some teachers do that, but I think others are, we want the conversations. We want to report quarterly, but only twice a year in writing and twice a year verbally. So we'll communicate with parents quarterly. Verbal goal-setting conference in the fall, a written report card mid-year, goal-setting, progress review in March, and then a written report card at the end of the year. We want to make it richer for parents.
So is the format of the report card then changing? Will there not longer be letter grades? Is it all going to be standards-based?
It currently is standards-based. I would suggest that the criteria that we currently report on is a little bit dated. A lot of skill, not as much strategy. So we're...
What's the difference in the workload for the teachers to report this way? Is it different? Does it take more time? Does it take less time? Is this more of a burden? Are they okay with it? Are they pushing back? Or?
Both. No, the teachers are very excited. We want to we want to balance that quantitative and qualitative, the conversations we have with parents and guardians, as well as the written report card. A lot, written report cards, of course, are required for some documentation purposes, but a lot of feedback we get from parents that it's the narrative or the conversation part that's rich, not my child is progressing to the second grade standards in this particular area.
So it's been too long for me. At some point, it's satisfactory or needs improvement, but then in the 5th grade, there's number grades? Or
No, there's no number or letter grades. It's all standards-based in that it is rating a child's progress toward the standard or exceeding the standard.
Oh, okay. Is that the way it's always been?
I believe we last revised our report cards about 15 years ago, so I think so.
Yeah.
That's what we always, 15 years.
Yeah, but that's when they had to
Yeah.
chisel it into the stone, yeah. Okay, so there's a question about whether or not school committee needs to review any changes in the report cards. I have no idea.
I don't believe so.
I wouldn't.
Not to my knowledge.
Not that
no.
I don't think so, but, okay.
That's not a policy change?
I don't think it's covered under policy, but I will double check policy. We'll see. Okay. Thank you. It's certainly a conversation that we'll be having again, or touching back to. The June enrollment report? Who covers that? We need to do that? We're just looking at it?
So you have it in front of you. It just shows you the cohort of data from October of 2014 to March of 2015, and then June of 2015. You recall, you used to get monthly enrollment reports, and we shifted to this model. So this is the update for the end of the school year.
If I could touch on something with, sort of relates to enrollment, there was something in Steve's report that talked about a change in the low-income collection numbers.
Correct.
And you have a 2.5-page thing from the state. And I was concerned about this, and I called Dave Linsky on it to see what the impact might be for us. And we might touch base again. At this point in time, he doesn't think there will be an impact, but he says it's going to change the numbers. In other words, the numbers are going to be lower. Now, if they all go lower equally, then we'll probably be okay as far as, school building and reimbursement or grants and other things. But
Correct.
if it doesn't turn out to be equal, then we'll have to keep our eye on that because it could impact us financially.
That's correct.
Yeah.
I have
Yes.
a particular question about that with relation to Title I. I just spoke to Chris about it as she was leaving. She said the information wasn't, but she thought actually Terry might know something about that. We are kind of borderline at this point of even qualifying as a Title I school.
Yeah.
And so that's a federal program, not a state program. So I wondered how the state reorganization of classification might bubble up.
It could because
Yeah,
it's
that's
federal
what I-
money, but the federal money goes to the state. And the
Right.
state gives it to us.
Right, and
So-
so I was a little concerned about that
Yeah.
as well, because I think are we not kind of borderline as even qualifying for a Title I school? Last year, didn't we lose like one or two that brought us within very close of not qualifying?
I think
Am
we're
I
near-
wrong about that?
I think we're near the edge, but Terry, isn't it, if we,
Actually, Title I
actually-
does not
it's
fall under
actually-
the purview of special.
okay.
It is me,
Okay, so but if it dips below for like a year or two, you still hold it
yes.
because then it might come back up. So if you just dip below for 1 year, you don't lose it, but we have to keep our eye on it.
You do, you do. And we don't know the impact. I won't know until the middle of July, once the data is released. But I thought I read that they were going to do hold harmless for the upcoming school year and then implement for the subsequent year.
Yeah, I thought there was like a
A transition.
You're saying this transitional year.
Right, I
was
think it's a
going to be-
transitional year, but they're letting us know they're going to use a different metric
Yeah.
in order to determine.
Right, yeah. That made me a little nervous because of the SBA and Chapter 70.
Exactly.
And then Title I would be huge if we lost that. But maybe that's not quite so important right now. I mean, it's important, but I mean, if
Right.
what Frank, and I'm sure it is, what Frank is saying is correct, it doesn't go away immediately.
Right, but it has diminished over the past couple of years that I've been here.
Yeah, yeah. That was why it came to me.
And our Title I funding is pretty nominal,
It is, it's,
$9,400 or something. It's pretty nominal.
But it's something.
Yeah.
it is,
It's all something.
right.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
yeah.
Okay. Would this be a good time to go through the
Sure.
committees for next year? We don't need to vote on any of this, but just to talk a little bit about the committees for next year. I emailed,
Yeah, extra, thanks.
No, but we can share.
Send it out.
sorry, I meant to make copies, and then I forgot. But it should be on your, did you get the email?
I did.
Yeah, I just don't recall getting.
You can look online if you like.
Okay, so just, once again, so nothing's set in stone yet unless we decide that we want to. So we've got the change for this chair and the secretary. It's easy enough. So warrants, everybody is on. Payroll, everyone is listed. That's how it's been done in the past. So people are good with that?
Yeah.
Budgets, everyone.
3 here, 1 here to sign.
So superintendent evaluation was Frank Hess. I believe that then becomes, is that automatically the chair? Here's a big one, the Union 50. Now, it had been, at some point, I think I switched for Susan Hanlon 2 years ago, but otherwise, I think, Frank, you've been on it for a while, and you've been on it for a while. Is that something that we should?
And we certainly noticed that Greg's participation at the meetings, though, was robust. His ability to vote was a little less so. Which is...
So I think that
Did I
that's,
say something about that?
I thought you had, if I recall.
There's still some reverberation of it.
so how do people want to proceed with that? I understand that Greg is interested. I assume that, Scott, you're not really interested for this year, but
No.
for next year, okay. I
Well,
think
Greg, you want to take my slot?
Is that a 3?
it's a 3-person.
Who's been on it the longest?
I probably have, haven't I? I don't know.
Is anybody willing to step down?
I just said I would.
Oh, but, okay, sure, I guess.
I would, but I think I have to be there.
You should be,
Okay.
yeah.
I should be, okay. All right.
And someone really wants to do it, but I'd like to do it too, but whatever.
Well, thank you, Frank, I appreciate that, and Greg, that'll be a nice addition to that. So I've got negotiations as Frank and Greg, not applicable quite yet, but soon. Willing to do that again, potentially?
Next.
Shouldn't we do that when it is closer to the time?
Yeah.
Yes, so, but we'll leave that for now. Personnel, Frank, Hess. I'm not even sure what that covers.
Karen, aren't there some things that came up as far as sick bank things? Is that what the Personnel Committee votes on?
You know, I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll find out exactly what that does.
I know that sometimes there were some sick bank questions because we have to approve requests.
That's correct.
And I think
Okay.
it was the Personnel Committee that,
Perform that function?
yes, right.
I don't know.
All right.
I think we met once, and that, I don't know if that wasn't this year, or if it was last year when I was still on it at the very end of close to the end of the year, that we had a meeting on that.
Well, so does Frank, you were on it last year. Do you want to continue? Somebody else interested? If anyone's interested in anything, please speak up.
Yeah. If someone wants to, then.
It's hard to be interested if you don't know what it is.
I'll go back on it again. I mean, I was on it last year. I'm surprised.
What are we talking about?
Personnel.
Okay.
Policy, I did that this year. I'm perfectly happy to step aside if somebody wants to do that one. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
That's the sales job right there.
You're going to have to sell harder than that.
I have to say, some years there's very little work, and some years there's more. There was a lot of work this year that got sidetracked with other things that happened.
It can be tedious, but it is very important because you want to have your policy before you have the problem. You don't want to write the policy in the middle of a problem, so you want to make sure you have a good policy going forward.
Yes.
Now, is this a one-person representative, or?
It's a one,
With
because
the
you get the
other
one person
two
from
committees.
each committee
Oh, right, okay.
together to meet.
It's just one. That one should have more than, that's a lot of work, potentially. It seems like it should have more than one person, but.
I'm sure that the committee wouldn't mind if more than one wanted to do it. And they usually meet with the superintendent and with a representative from MASC. And the MASC guy usually comes with his boilerplate, and you compare what you want to do to his boilerplate, and then you choose what you want to do going forward.
Well, this year they just sent the boilerplate, and we just sat with it projected up and
Right.
changed on the spot. But then we've had 6 or 7 other meetings this year. just because it's been a lot of stuff going on. But let me see.
And one
let
of
me
the
see if
things
there's
that
one more.
I think the policy committee is going to be looking at as well was this whole thing with naming.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Name of the library.
Yeah,
Well, naming in general, but
Yeah,
that was
right,
the
right.
what.
yeah, that was pushed off, I think, till next year. But yes, that will be one of the things.
Yeah,
So let me find out if more than one representative makes sense, because it seems that there's some interest. So, does that sound good? We'll figure that one out,
Yeah, that makes sense.
okay? Technology. We've already decided the technology is a
Scott's
big
already
one.
got on the committee. Wow.
He's expressed an interest. And I thought,
I think if Frank, are you still, this can hold
I
more than
think,
one?
I think that, I think more than one person can go to this too, I think, I mean, you know. So, but I mean,
Well, you have Frank Hess and you have us both on there. Is that's satisfactory to the committee? It's fine for me, unless it's required only one.
I think there can be two, just can't have more than two.
Yeah.
Right, that makes sense? Okay,
The more, the merrier.
until you hit open meeting laws, yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
I understood.
Buildings and facilities has been Frank Hess and Greg. Interested?
I enjoy that. I'd like to stay on that, but happy to step aside if somebody else would like to.
And Frank, I assume you want to stay on that, yes?
I will, if you like, yeah. The,
Is there any other interest?
Mr. Burgestresser is not on there anymore,
Okay.
and Sean Colleen is on. Now, I don't know if Sean will want to stay on being a selectman. He certainly brings a lot to the table because
You should encourage him to stay.
Yeah, I
You
mean,
should
he
encourage him
knows
to
contracting, he knows buildings,
Okay.
He went to school in the building,
yeah.
so he's known the building for a long time.
Long
He was
time.
walking behind our building today, and I flew out a third-grade window and, what are you doing here? I thought it was stranger danger. It wasn't stranger danger. It's just checking probably our drainage.
It's drain danger.
Is anybody else interested in doing that? We good? All right.
Yeah, that's fine.
Well, the long-term perspective, too, is so
Right.
important on that
Yeah.
committee.
Wellness, which is going to be a huge one this coming year. I know Frank Cook is interested in continuing with that. I do believe there is definitely room for another if someone's interested. So is anybody else interested?
Not yet. Thanks.
You can always join.
Yeah, that's what
Right.
I'm deferring for future. Yes.
And I don't know what this, it wasn't on the teacher evaluation subcommittee, is that what it's called? I didn't know, it wasn't listed. But I know that was a big one.
There's an
You
MOU and
MOU.
yeah, that's
Right.
what that's from.
Okay.
With the continuity and all that understanding, I would certainly like to stay on that. I don't know that we necessarily need another person, but if there's somebody that wanted to have to fight or wrestle for it, I do have long arms, I'll have you know.
All right, it sounds like we're good with that. And revenue generation, I believe that that's all yours, Mr. Hope. And then for CSA, Mr. Embry,
Yeah.
yes? And school council, when you can
Yes.
make that,
Sure.
that'd be great. DSEF,
You know, I have no idea what that is, or I've never been
have you been to any DSEF meetings?
informed.
But your name's on it.
Huh? Well,
I don't know, we'll find out.
yeah.
They just had a meeting the other night, didn't they, or?
Yes, last night.
Yeah. They didn't invite you?
I've never been invited, and I've never known what that person was supposed to do.
I don't know. All right, we'll find out. Tech, Greg, is that still doing something or not really?
You know, I went to a lot of meetings, then Steve started going. We don't have a vote there. So I was supposed to go to report on what was going on, but Steve went to every one, so I stopped going because he was attending.
Well, should we wait and sort of see then if the interim is, if that's something that he attends, or is it? They're the only ones who can vote?
Right, they changed the rules, so he's now the voting member, where before each committee had a vote.
Right.
I don't think they have to go, but if they're going to vote, they have to go. So it seemed redundant
It doesn't seem
Yes.
like you
to
should be
have
going. Right, so you
us
should be going.
when he
Okay.
was there.
Well, I think some of these things are just also not necessarily that you're going to vote, but just to understand what's going on and be part of the discussion and to bring some of that information back. You know, it will be the same thing if you were to attend, for example, a Board of Selectmen meeting, just to know what's going on there, just to be able to, if there's any topics that get brought up, to represent the school committee's point of view, a little bit like what advisory does when they come to our
Actually, next year might not be a bad year for us to attend, because having interim superintendent, there wouldn't be any carryover to the next year.
The meetings are Friday morning, which were, or at least they were, which was a little bit
Yeah.
difficult.
Okay, well, we'll keep that one on the table.
I'd rather not, if that's what we're at, I'd
Yep.
rather not do that.
That's fine. We'll see. And then the other one is CPAC, and Susan and I went this past year. That's another one of those things, I think it's really good, would be really good for everybody who can to attend one of their meetings, just to get a feel for it. There generally isn't a whole lot to report out, and they tend to be good, especially now that there's a website with information, if there's something that's going on. And Terry's usually apprised of it if something is going on that needs to be reported out. But I think it's a really helpful thing just to go and listen and see. So I can stay on, but if someone else would like to, that would be great. It'd be good to have 2 or even 3 people, and we can rotate through. But the meetings they do tend to be Friday mornings. So if anyone has an interest in at least potentially going, put your name down, we can decide in September, and we can let you know. Okay? All right, thank you.
Thanks for putting this together.
Put that out for everyone. All right, so we've got consent agenda. The Sherborn School Committee meetings, May 12th, and the DSEF grants.
I move we approve this consent agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. For, abstain? Okay. Yay, 1 abstain. All right. For review, which we don't need to talk about, just look at the regional and Dover school committee meetings. Does anyone have any items for the September Sherborn School Committee meeting?
Well,
School
I do.
improvement plan. Yeah.
All right,
Yes.
that's good.
And also,
Review of previous year.
School improvement plan.
School improvement.
we might not want to start on the budget then, but I think that we should start to hear what the budget plan is going to be from, maybe the new business manager and the interim superintendent to get an idea of what the timeline might be for the budget.
That's a good idea, introduction to the business manager.
So the business manager, is that a joint business manager and the super?
Right, I think between the
Okay.
two of them, they should
Okay.
work on that.
We have lots of time to think about it, so let me know if you think of more things.
We should probably have an introduction from the superintendent.
That's true, intro
That'd be helpful.
of super.
Yeah, he might want to introduce himself to the public on the TV,
That would make sense.
On the
regional have the first meeting.
Still.
All right, anybody have anything else to cover today? Because if not, we need to vote to go into executive session.
Actually, you do not need an executive session.
Well,
Unless you know of something.
Uh,
I spoke with Steve earlier.
We do have
You do? Okay.
one thing that we want to
Okay.
cover.
Excuse me.
Let's discuss contract negotiations for non-union personnel.
Okay.
And then, so we probably don't have the minutes then, right? We can do that in September, that it doesn't really matter.
Is it in your, no.
The secretary.
Yeah, because I don't think she included them.
I sent them in to Sharon,
Do
and
we-
usually Steve brings them.
Do you need to vote to accept the DSEF grant?
we did that with the consent.
With the consent.
I'm sorry, I missed.
Yeah.
That was so efficient.
That
I missed
was-
it.
it
That's
just
the
went
beauty
right
of the
through.
consent agenda.
They actually don't have them.
That's fine.
Pulled them and thinking we weren't going to touch them.
That's okay, we'll do that. I'll put that into the September. In September. All right, so can we vote to go into executive session to discuss contract negotiations for non-union personnel? Scott? Just have to say yes.
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 Right? Yes?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. Do we have to vote to adjourn then, too? Or just do that?
Not to return to open session.
Not to return to open session. Sorry. Thank you.
Good job.